Hello fellow readers and booktubers. The title of this video is 8 Questions for Readers, but questions which have nothing to do with reading or books. So let me explain what I'm up to here. It has occurred to me, and this is not a recent revelation, I was thinking about it today, but this is something that's occurred to me as a thought that comes back to me again and again and again, that as a reader of books, I'm part of a special breed. In fact, addressing other booktubers out there, you know what I'm talking about. Unlike other people who only read when they've got nothing else to do, or they might read because someone has assigned a book for them to read and they read it grudgingly, or the people who read only half paying attention to what they read. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about us, readers. We read because that's what we do. It's a calling, it's a vocation. It's something that sets us apart from the pack. When we get up in the morning, our first thought is, when will I find time to read today? It's not a question of whether we're going to find time to read, but when. What part of the day am I going to block out? What hours am I going to lock the door and pull the shade and sit in my chair and read a book where no one is allowed to interrupt me? We live to read. Reading is our life's blood. It's our oxygen supply. It keeps us alive. And to be, if for some reason something should happen during the day and we can't read a book, by the time bedtime rolls around or by the time we climb into bed, it doesn't matter how late it is, we're going to grab for a book and stay up till 3 a.m. reading it just because we have to get that fix. Reading is what we do. It's our calling. So those are the people I'm talking about here. I'm talking about you and I'm talking about me. And it occurred to me that as readers, because we're kind of unique, I know the patriarch of BookTube, of course, is Steve Donahue, and he kind of implies in many of his posts that we're perhaps an endangered species. There aren't that many of us in the world anymore. That might be true, but nonetheless, because we are readers and we belong to this elite group in a way, we would respond to certain questions differently from most people. And the kind of questions I'm talking about here are not strange or challenging questions. They're the kind of questions you might see in a job application or on a dating site or something like that. But I think as readers, we would respond to these a little differently. Now, I'm not going to take a survey here. I'm not going to go through all the responses and tabulate them or coordinate them in any way. But I think if someone were to take the try, if I get enough responses to this, and I would prefer you respond to it on video rather than in a comment section. I think if a lot of people responded to this and they're all readers, after a while, you would see certain trends would emerge that would be unique to us and not other people who might be responding to these questions in a different way, coming out of a different frame of mind. Now, let me just warn you that some of my responses here might seem a little uncompromising. I know occasionally I'll put up a video and I'll say something and there'll be that comment that will appear in the comment section. Someone is offended by what I'm saying. They think I'm coming on too strong or they think I'm being insensitive or something. So for these questions, though, if you're offended by them, I don't care. I really don't, because they're very basic kind of things. So we'll start with something very simple. What's your favorite kind of food? Now, up until very recently, I would have said Chinese food, but my doctor has informed me that wreaks havoc with my blood pressure. So as far as my answer to that question, it's kind of in transition at the moment, so I'm going to wiggle out of that one. What's your favorite kind of music? Jazz. Now, the jazz I'm talking about is not the stuff that currently passes for jazz, that kind of elevator music stuff. And I'm not talking about the kind of jazz or what was called fusion in the 70s and into the 80s. That was that monster child of the breeding of jazz with rock and roll, and you come up with this ghastly sounding stuff. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the jazz, the real stuff, mostly from the 50s and the 60s. I'm talking about Miles Davis. I'm talking about Bill Evans, Cannonball Adderley, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Chet Baker, Clifford Brown, Grant Green, Hank Mobley, Max Roach, Oscar Peterson, the real artists, the men who lived for this music. That's my favorite kind of music. And by the way, I should add, I'm not talking about the music I listen to when I'm reading. I don't listen to music when I read. This is the music I listen to for entertainment because it makes me feel good. It's the kind of music I would play in the background if I had people over. It's the kind of music I would listen to when I was in the car, if I'm in the car, or if I'm on an airplane, taking a long flight or something. I look for the jazz, and I've got a pretty nice collection of jazz music on my phone now. A close second to this would be classical music. With that, though, it's mostly the Baroque era and decidedly Bach. Let's face it, Bach created music. Prior to Bach, it was mostly chanting. Bach made music, and his influence can even be heard in jazz. But anyway, my immediate response is jazz with that, conditional statement there. Jazz with a capital J, the real stuff. If you were prevented from reading forever, what would you do? Now, I don't want to get morbid with this. Suicide's not an option. For myself, I would just spend all my time listening to music and jazz, as a matter of fact. Music gives me joy. It really does impact your thinking and everything else. It's a poor substitute for reading, but it's the only thing I can think of that comes close to how reading lights up your brain. They've done brain scans of people when they're reading, lights go off in the head. I think music is the only other thing that does that. So if I could never read another book, I would just spend all my time listening to music. What is your favorite city? Well, Chicago, of course, is number one. The close second here is New York City. And then followed by many of the European capitals, certainly the ones I've been to. Rome looms very large in this. Paris, London, Dublin. And when I say my favorite city, well, I'm talking about, when I go to these cities, I live in one of them. I live in Chicago. I'm very much aware of the history of these cities. And in many cases, I'm aware of the literary history. So when I say these are my favorite cities, it's because I know the ghosts that walk the streets of these cities. And I go out and I walk with them. I know they're there. The great literary giants of these cities who made these cities, who breathe the same air that I'm breathing when I'm in those cities. That's why these cities are my favorites. Next question, favorite beverage, alcoholic, Scotch. Nothing else. Well, maybe wine, but I don't really consider wine alcohol. Favorite beverage, non-alcoholic, coffee, followed closely by tea. Favorite time of day, the hours just before sunrise. It's quiet, it's peaceful. The first thing I do is make a pot of coffee, and that first cup of coffee, I'm alive, and then I start reading. That's the best time of day to read, at least for me. I get the most out of reading at that time, so that's why the hours before sunrise are my favorite time of day. Favorite season, fall, followed by winter. I think choosing fall is not an unusual choice, but as a reader, I'm choosing fall and winter because those two seasons, you don't have to make an excuse as to why you're not going outside. Now, people who don't read cannot imagine staying inside. And in the summer and in the spring, they're stunned. Why are you staying inside? It's a beautiful day. I love beautiful days too. I'll open the windows if I have to. But fall and winter give me an excuse for staying inside because I'm going to be reading. I don't have to explain anything to anybody. So anyway, those are the 8 questions. I think that's the 8 of them. Food, music, if you can't read, favorite city, beverage, alcoholic, beverage, non-alcoholic, favorite time of day, and favorite season. So those are my answers. I'm really looking forward to what the rest of you have to say. And I'm really addressing the readers here. Okay. And again, a lot of these questions, they're very common questions, and some of the answers might be common to even non-readers. But I do think on balance, if someone were to tabulate all the answers and look at them, you would find something readers respond to these things in a slightly different way from non-readers. I'm not going to be the guy who does that, but if any of you want to, have at it. So looking forward to what you have to say. That's all I've got for you today. Keep reading and stay strong.